So where do you get this energy from?
God's grace.
Hi, welcome back to Let Me Ask You Something, the weekly podcast where I talk to everyday ordinary people about something extraordinary in their lives. Now this week I talked to somebody who may not be ordinary, Katie Chonacas. She is really a Renaissance woman. That is the only way I can describe her, because she is an actress. She is a writer. She is a producer. She's a director. She's a comedian. She's a YouTuber. She's a podcaster. She's a world traveler. So you name it, she's probably it. So our conversation this week goes just like her podcast. She's all over the place. We go through a lot of things in this conversation. So I hope you enjoy.
All right. Welcome to Let Me Ask You Something, our weekly podcast where I talk to everyday ordinary people about something extraordinary in their lives. Now, this week we have somebody some of you might already know, or at least know the face, because she's been in a lot of stuff. And she's a published author, actor, model, a regular Renaissance woman, so to speak. So let me ask you something, Katie. Why do you suffer from imposter syndrome?
Well, first of all, Mike, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful for you and the listener for being here. I feel like we all suffer from some type of imposter syndrome, especially nowadays with wanting to perfect everything and wanting everything to be a perfect picture image and being told to strive for our best, in the school system. So me, I'm very, I guess I grew up very intense and extreme in a lot of ways. And so I just wanted to be all or nothing. And so for me to do the best that I could do and then go for it is the way that I like to do things. So a lot of times I've held myself back, and I can give a prime example of being a motivational speaker and wanting to speak to you and the listener and the viewer, and just wanting to, share with people certain wisdoms and knowledges that I knew when I was only 14 years old. And so I had the idea, like, oh, I had the master plan. I'm like, I was so ambitious. I'm 14. I can put an ad in the paper and I can charge people $250. And back then that was a lot of money for a 2-day seminar. If X amount of people came, I'm like, I can rent it out at a hotel, at a conference room, like a professional. And there could be like people could have break for lunch. I'm getting into details here. Or like I could provide lunch, and I had it all mapped out and planned out. And like I was going to go and be on a stage and be a motivational speaker and share people wisdom and information that I knew. And what happened was, because I didn't have the quote unquote world experience that I have now, traveling the world internationally twice, right? That's why I have my podcast called She's All Over the Place, right? Because really I've been all over the place. But what happened was I stopped myself from myself. And at 14, I'm like, I have this mastermind idea. And instead of actually going through with it, it just stayed in my mind, and it's called a Putnam theory. Hillary Putnam, he's actually from Chicago, and it's the Putnam theory of having something in your mind. It's a thought that turns into form, and the thought that turns into form to the actual materialization of something, mostly it's just a fantasy and happens in our mind, but the action of doing is limited, right? So we have all these ideas and thoughts. So I stopped myself from doing this, because I thought, why would someone of your age, or my parents' age, or anyone else's age come and listen to a little 14-year-old girl who wasn't of the world yet? So I stopped myself from myself, and I decided, let me go travel the world. And I did all those, and I had all those experiences, and now I'm circling back around. So it was like a youngster knowing thing of a knowing of a knowing. But I do wonder, like, if I didn't have the imposter syndrome, if I didn't stop myself from myself and I would have taken action, who knows? Maybe I would have been like doing TED Talks. I don't know if there was TED Talks back then, but who knows what my life would have looked like. But because I had imposter syndrome, I stopped myself from myself. And that's one good prime example of sharing imposter syndrome and hacking it and being mindful, especially through my journey now of being able to be having red flags and awarenesses of a certain practices to stop that imposter syndrome and to call myself out on it, because, oh, I've already done this, or I know what this looks like, or I know what this is. And so I can make it an interpersonal game with myself now and hack. But like I said, we can't ever, well, I didn't say this, but we can't ever go back. We can't have those kind of regrets. Regrets are a death threat, right? We can't compare this to that. But I am aware that's what it was. I was 14. I didn't know the word imposter syndrome then, but I understand now. And I'm doing it now, and I'm grateful to be doing it now. So when you want to do something, then just really go for it. And if there's blocks to stop us along the way, then find, emotional support systems to support us taking the next step. We need that emotional support sometimes, or just someone holding our hand to give us the extra go to do it.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now, I call you a Renaissance woman because, as I said before, you are an actor, you're a musician, you're a producer, you're a director, you're a podcaster, you're a writer, you're a lot of things. So where do you get this energy from?
God's grace. It's the universal law. I mean, I think we all have this tapped in energy. It's if we're aware of it or not. So on a macro level, on a universal level, my birthday, I'm very much into numbers. My birthday is 11/11. So they always say 11/11, make a wish, or like 11/11. It's like the portal to the infinite. So I feel like we do. My shaman, taught me that, there's the vertical and horizontal, and we live in a very horizontal, like to the source, up and down, a very straight line. But what happens is when we get horizontal, for example, like God forbid there was like a car crash that happened 5 years ago, or 3 years, something happened to my daughter or my niece, or if something happened in school, or something happened because of my brother or my sister, and you're always having these neurological patterns of, oh, but this happened, it's like a movie, and you're projecting that back into your life, and you're manifesting back into your life. So the best thing to do is, I don't want to say like pull the root and not talk about it at all, but if you want to like paint on, a white canvas, and if you look at your brain and your life like a canvas, if I'm bringing old colors to my new canvas, I'm not starting afresh. So, it's from a neurological perspective of no thing and being emotionally detached and unattached. That's why sometimes interpersonal relationships are so difficult, because our emotions are so strong. We have 40,000 neurons in our heart. Our heart's very powerful, and so that's great love. And also, we're emotionally connected to our circumstances and experiences. So if we can unhook from our circumstances and experiences, not forget them, but not always talk about them all the time, and just kind of reliving the cycle, we're not allowing space for new energies and new thoughts and new ideas, and the horizontal of the source to come in, because we're so cluttered and full of the old stuff, right? Let go of the old stuff. The past doesn't exist. You can't go back to yesterday. We're not going back there. In the mind for a memory, okay, but we're here in the present right now in this moment. It's all we have.
Yeah, but you can learn from the things from the past, but to apply them to the future and just live for the now.
Of course, right. Definitely.
Now, I want to get into some of the stuff that you do, because, as I said, you do a lot. You just released a book of poetry. That's your first-time author on World Poetry Day on March 21st. Talk a little bit about this poetry book.
Sure, I would love to. So it's called A Lover's Fairy Tale. And inside A Lover's Fairy Tale, there's art pieces that are from my dear friend, Robert Sturman. He's a legendary photographer. And they're taken with the original Polaroid by Polaroid that was discontinued in 2001. So when I did this series with Robert Sturman, it was very special. They're very, very rare. And so when Polaroid discontinued these photos, he went and bought as many as he could and put them in the freezer, as many freezers as he could, so they would preserve. And so we did a series together. I traveled the world, and I selected pieces from 2002 to 2012. 12, I selected 11 pieces from my world travels: Bermuda, the Dominican Republic, Greece, like Monaco, like all these different places. And it was about love, and it wasn't just love in relation to like a partnership, like if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or a partner. It was in relation to nature and waterfalls and culture and food and everything aesthetically beautiful that are just organic gifts without the cost of money. So that kind of love. And so these pieces are sacred to my soul. And if you go to aloversfairytale.com and you actually go to the bottom and just put in your email, I have an automation to send you a free gift. I actually curated spoken word music videos that I self-produced, self-financed, everything from beginning, middle to end as a producer. And it's a complimentary gift. If you go to loversfairytale.com, and then you can have the curation of the playlist. And then, so that's and then the book's on Amazon. So if you want to pick it up.
And I'll link all that stuff in the show notes so people can go find you at all your places that you're at.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite poem in that book? I know they're all personal. I know it's probably like choosing a child or favorite child. You can't choose a favorite child. But what's something that speaks to you, or maybe one of the earliest ones that you wrote?
Oh, that's a really good question. Do you want me to read you a short one?
Yeah, we got time.
This is the one. This is one. The photo is called Parthenon. It was right when I came back from Greece. The headband I got in Greece, that jean jacket I wore in Greece, and they have the Grecian columns. But this one I feel is very apropos. I wrote this in 2004, and I feel like it's very in alignment if you think on a planetary level of like what happened, like with being infected, right, with this dis-ease that's been going on. But so it's called ASC on the 26, and I can tell you a story about it after. But it goes. Who would have thunk it? It's driving me crazy, this feeling inside. I can't call you. I'm thinking, feeling you. I don't understand this love. One day everything is so perfect, so precious, so fine, so pure. The next day, we are so infected. Please, please, why has this love poisoned us? Free me from thy germs. I want the purest for both of us. Leave me not, for I sorrow. Love me not, for I sorrow. Love me tender, for it's your soul I would want to die for. Hold me, breathe, come to me. I enjoy shedding my tears for you. You make me weep. I enjoy weeping for you. Stay off me, brother of love. Stay away from me. Make me stir crazy. Make me bleed. Only wish and weep for me. Tender close, I hear thy knot. Brother, my brother, who has lost? Forgiven my forsaken soul. One lie leads to endless treasures. I weep for you not. My knees gone somber.
That was awesome. I'm not a poet. I'm not into poetry, but that sent a little shiver up my spine there. So that was great. That was awesome.
Oh, that's so awesome. That it really is. That's really cool. Thank you.
So, do you write poetry? Do you write anything else? I mean, do you write scripts, screenplays, or any short stories or anything like that?
Yeah, I produce 2 short films through the union, through SAG, and I've given non-union actors an opportunity to be union, to get involved in the union through the new media contract, which is really cool, providing opportunities for my fellow thespians and ambitious actors. And then I created a web series through the union as well. It's called Trigger Flaws. It's online, the pilot and the 2nd episode. And then I created Couples Therapy. It's an improv web series. We're actually in competition through Film Freeway in the film festival circuit, and we just got announced we won 2 film festivals today and yesterday, and we're nominated. Really? Yeah, we're nominated. We're in competition for other ones. So seasons 1 and 2 of Couples Therapy is on our YouTube channel, The Sophisticated Psychos. So I produced, directed, and that one is all improv. But we come up with all the situational ideas,
Yeah.
and then go for it. But everything else is scripted, and I have partners that we write
Okay.
together.
Which film festivals did you win?
So one is MLC, another one's I'll have to send them to you.
Yeah, send me the links and I'll link them down below and
I
all
had to
that.
look them up because we got over 200 invites and we accepted 29 invites. So CCMA award winner. Yeah,
Okay.
so one is called Cult Critic Movie Awards. So that was the one we got today.
Okay, and that is today is the 16th of June.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I went through and if I wasn't doing a podcast, it would be called stalking, but it was research. So, but I went through a lot of that stuff, and it's a very eclectic collection of things that you do with your music. It just I'm not into a lot of different music, but I liked it. I appreciated it and I liked it. And actually, I was doing some work and I had it in the background. So talk a little bit about your music. What inspires you for your music?
Sure. So thanks for checking it out. For anyone who wants to tune in, it's The Sophisticated Psychos. It's streaming on all platforms and on SoundCloud, so it's free everywhere. And then there's music videos for some of the videos on The Sophisticated Psychos YouTube. Initially, my family, I come from a big Greek background, and we grew up going to church 45 minutes away. And so we would listen to oldies. And so my mom grew up in Detroit, like the good old days. And we would listen to oldies, so I would understand harmonies and melodies because of the oldies and the feel-good music and the lyrics and the sound and the vibrations of what Motown, what they were saying about like the music and like love and how beautiful it was. And then as a teen growing up, I was involved in the underground electronic music scene before DJs were really popular in Western civilization. And since I was going to all these amazing underground parties in Detroit as a kid, like my mom and dad didn't like it too much, but literally, but all the best DJs in the world, every single best DJ in the world you can think about, they came to Detroit without me getting on a plane going anywhere. They were just like 20 minutes away, and I would go to these huge warehouses and like be around these DJs, and I would be like next to the DJ behind the DJ booth, and DJs were like celebrities back then, but there wasn't paparazzi. You could just like chill with DJs and like befriend them and stuff. So it wasn't like how crazy, right? Anyway, so growing up, I understood like 14 bars. I understood like bars, and I understood beats and without lyrics. And so I just had an eclectic ear growing up because of these two very different situational programs of influence of music. So I was doing a lot of music, and then I was going by Katie Coco, and it was when Gaga was first coming up, and they were wanting to make me like the next Britney Spears, and it was like Lady Gaga, and I saw her perform like, on a very small stage when she just got her buzz and she was just going, and her ex-boyfriend's brother, David Lopera, is actually the one who came to me and said, I want to direct your first music video, which was So Into You. And that's a song that I went on that got me a tour with 50 Cent and G Unit. And so I went on tour with 50 Cent and G Unit all in 2007, all in 2008, in front of 18,000 people, like opening up for 50. And 50 was so cool. And we were at dinner, and he's like, you want to open up for me? And after you perform, while I'm on stage, I have you come back out and you do your song again. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like he threw me a bone. He like really like gave me a lot of respect. So I have like Yayo and Banks and Who Kid and everyone telling everyone like, put your mother effing hands up. and they're all doing it, like bumping out to my song. So that was like So Into You. I was going out by Katie Coco, and then I went out on like this musical journey. But then like people weren't like getting my vibe and my sound of what I was doing, or maybe I just wasn't consistent and I didn't keep up with it, but I was just having internal conflicts as we do in life. So I stopped doing music for a while. I was just doing all my spoken word, and I did the spoken word music videos. And then I went to Paris. I was in Paris for Paris Fashion Week. And I was with the president of Chanel, John Galantic, and like we were having breakfast with him before the Chanel show, which is like the most like amazing show at Paris Fashion Week. And I like sat with the Chanel family during like Paris Fashion Week at the Chanel show.
No big deal, right?
No big deal. No big deal. And no big deal. And this is when like Kanye was first getting involved in fashion, and he was like sitting front row, sitting next to like Emma Watson, the girl from I think Lord of the Rings. Is it Watson?
No, it was Emma. Well, Emma Watson was Harry Potter.
Maybe it was Harry Potter then. Harry Potter, yeah. So he was sitting next to her, and like I was like seeing like Kanye, and it was when he was first getting started in Fashion Week or fashion. So anyway, so I'm with the Chanel family, amazing at the Chanel show, and I was so inspired that I came back and I wrote, stepping on the scene, if you know what I mean. J. Logan Hornhill, make you scream. Started off with my BFF. Paris Fashion Week, you'll never forget. So Balmain, Chanel, they do exist. So I was so inspired. It was like spoken word, but like fashion hip hoppy. That I came back, flew in my producer. I was in New York City. I did the song. While I was there, I met my music partner now, Nikki Scorpio, who has an amazing solo single called Irregular that you have to hear. Just type in Nikki Scorpio Irregular. His song is so amazing. It's really, really awesome. And so he and I met in the studio about 8 years ago. And that's when we started going on this musical journey, and we created The Sophisticated Psychos. And so we have like some songs on TSP together, and we wanted to do TSP.com, but the Smashing Pumpkins owned it. So we couldn't do TSP.com. But then that pivots into him having his sound and then me having my sound. So what happened was during the pandemic, in 2016, I took a DJ music course because it was the imposter syndrome thing. I went on this whole journey, and I didn't get myself the equipment and spend thousands of dollars and blah, 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 and like focus on like being a DJ and being a female producer and like doing my musical pursuits because I was distracted just doing other things. So in 2016, I was inspired by Nikki Scorpio to do a DJ music program. I did it for 1 year, and it's really great because I was taking all the acting classes. I studied with all the best people in Los Angeles for comedy, drama, in LA and in New York. And it's like you can only like read so many thousands of scripts that are like 100 pages each and then memorize all these materials. So it's like I was already doing all that. So the other side of acting, besides speaking, is what you're doing right now and what the listeners doing or the viewers doing, listening. So like speaking, but also the other side of it. The problem with a lot of actors is when they're on camera and they're self-taping, they're so in their head about their next line, they're not actually listening in the moment that we were talking about earlier, being in the moment. So as a great actor and as a great artist and as a great human being for humanity, to be a better listener, and it's great for being now and like my podcast is and to sharpen my listening skills. So I did this DJ music program, and we had finals every 6 weeks, and I would go, and my homework would be to listen to beats and sounds and to make music. So I was still like working on my craft, and I love being dedicated to something. So it was a 1 year program to be dedicated to something. And I was able to do the other side besides talking so much, which I do, was to be able to be a great listener. So go ahead.
That's something that I had to learn through my career. I'm a journalist, 22 years working for a newspaper. Early on, I didn't listen. I had my set of questions. I was writing, not listening, worried about my next question that I want to ask. And I miss great opportunities for follow-up questions that would have been a better story. And yes, listening is key.
Yeah, because when you're listening right now, it's not only the words that I'm saying, it's the tone of how I'm saying it and what I'm not saying, right? And picking up on things that I'm not actually saying to give a slice of life, to open up a new vibration and life to something else that could endow and enrich the conversation, right?
Yes. And I interview a lot of politicians in my job, and it's what they're not saying is like, well, you didn't really say this. Let's dive into that a little bit. So, yes, exactly what they're not saying.
Love that.
Going into your acting, since you brought that up as far as the actors, you started several years ago. So how old were you when you broke into the acting scene, and what was your first job?
Well, before we go there,
yeah.
because I gave you a long backstory, I just want to dive into what happened during the pandemic, if that's okay.
Oh, yes.
Cool. Okay, so what happened was during the pandemic, after taking the DJ music program, and I was just making all these beats in Ableton, just for passion and fun. If I was on the train or if I had, time, I would just make these beats. So I didn't even think about it. But during the pandemic, when we have all this time to self-reflect, I took a bunch of my music and I selected 22 tracks, beats that I made with just, no lyrics at all. And I put them together and I realized I have 5 different types: hypnotic energy, house, drum and bass, future bass, trap, like funk. I had all these different genres of music, EPs, enough for full EPs, like 4 or 5 songs, right? Not an extended
not
play,
an LP.
Not a full album, but like an EP for the listener and the viewer. Yeah. So what I decided was, and I'm, like I said, I'm a numbers girl. So October 20th, 2020, 10/20/2020, I decided what happened was, in the realm of quantum physics and science and spirituality and being tapped in, in tune, right? My partner and I, he actually was at a Conscious Life Expo and introduced me to Eric Thompson, who's a scientist at Subtle Energy, and he does quantum physics and encodes sound frequencies into clothing, into music, into like a bunch of things. So he introduced us. And what I did was he gave me a list of all these healing frequencies, and solfeggio healing frequencies are very popular. And for the first EP, it's like a big kid in a candy store. It's like pick which one you want. And I was looking at everything. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, on a planetary level, we need to do a lot more forgiving of one another. I knew my vessel. I needed to forgive myself for a lot of things. And I needed to forgive like my friends and my family and a lot of people in my life. And so as a vessel, I chose 639 healing frequencies encoded with quantum physics to encode forgiveness in a relationship with self and for others and on a planetary level. And that was 639 healing frequencies on October 20th, 2020. Then I was going to, on Valentine's Day, release the House EP, but I released the A Lover's Fairy Tale poetry book on World Poetry Day. So I focused on that and I waited, and then I woke up and it was the Imposter Syndrome thing. I should have just released the EP and the book at the same time. No worries. I should have just did that, but I didn't, and I learned from that. But I woke up and I was like, wait a minute, I have all these music videos ready to go and I have these songs ready to go. So then I decided, visiting my parents in Detroit, Michigan, and, the next one that was ready to go was called Full House. And I'm at my childhood home that I grew up in. And I released it on June 2nd, 2021, my mother's birthday, because I needed to. Next, from forgiveness, my vessel moved to, after doing a lot of forgiving, my human vessel moved to removing guilt and fear, needing to remove guilt and remove fear. So I chose, as a kid in a candy store again, 396 healing frequencies to remove guilt and fear. And I feel like in relation to my mom, and allowing a lot of, forgiveness and or a lot of guilt, removing a lot of guilt and fear, I released it on my mom's birthday. So that's the one I recently released. And then the next one, it'll be a surprise, but it'll be another healing frequency, and I'll be releasing that in the next couple of months.
That is so, like, you usually get layers of meaning and subtext upon subtext. That just takes it to a different level with the healing frequencies. That's just mind blowing. I'm anxious to listen to that. So 639 healing frequency. Is that what it's called? Is that what is?
Well, you just type in the Sophisticated Psychos, but the EP is Hypnotic Energy. Okay. So it's but it's labeled 639 hertz, which is HZ. Yeah, and the thing is, Mike, you have to understand, and the listener, it might not be for everyone, but if it calls to you and it attunes to you and you're hearing this or seeing this, we're aligned on a vibe. We're aligned in some way that it's a connection. So whoever hears it, it's meant for them to heal them. And we we can support by having conversations, but we can only hold space and share like with communication. So it breaks down people's thoughts. So then they can make their own choices, because we can only heal ourselves. No one can save us. No one can heal us. Only we can heal ourselves. And what we can do is hold someone's hand and be a friend. So I made this because it made me feel good. And if it makes me feel good, I hope it makes you feel good, and the viewer, the listener feels good, and whoever it tunes to, it's not like Britney Spears, Taylor Swift, like a big pop song, but
Well, I'm all about new experiences and trying everything once. So it's something that and I think that's a good philosophy we have, is don't be afraid to say yes. Everybody likes to say no, but don't be afraid to say yes sometimes, because you might like what you say yes to. So. All right, so going back to acting here, talk about your first on-screen experience. And when was that, and how old were you?
My first on-screen experience, so I have two. So my first on-screen experience really was when I was a teenager. It was Early Edition. It was a TV show. I was actually on the very last episode with the main actor, and I was a featured extra, where it's like I walked past, like my mom, we didn't have a red carpet here. But we had like a full-on party, and it was me walking past. So it really goes to show you of like your first time on TV and how you had a party for it. But then there's the first time on TV where it was like my first network experience with like a speaking role. So maybe you're speaking about that.
Yes. So what was that experience?
So that experience was mind-blowing and so deep within my soul, because I got to work with Gary Sinise on CSI.
Gary Sinise.
Oh yeah, CSI New York. Okay. And so I worked with him intimately for many hours, like every single day for the full week, and intimate scenes one-on-one where you're doing close-ups. For him, for me, reverse the camera, medium and wide. So, and he gave me the best compliment of my whole entire life. And it's on my reel, the scene of when he gave me the best. So not him giving me the compliment, but the scene of when he gave me the compliment is on my reel on Chonacas.com, but under actor reel. But he told me in between takes, and this was the best nugget and gem you could get from anyone earlier on in your career. He's like, "You're a very soulful actor."
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was so impactful for him to say that. And I haven't seen or spoken to him since. Well, I did actually, because he has Lieutenant Dan in the band camp. Like, I don't know if they're still doing it, but like you can probably Google like Lieutenant Dan in the bandcamp.com. But he would be doing cover songs with his band that was called in the Valley, and everyone went and got tickets, from the cast, and we'd all go see him perform and everything. I'm not sure if he's still doing it, but but I haven't seen him like since those days. But I mean, that's who I strive to be. Like right now, if we meet for 5 minutes, or if I know you for 50 minutes or 5 years or 50 years, to make an impact, to be a ripple effect, to inspire someone so they take it, and it like there's an exchange of energy. Like I impacted your soul, I moved you and inspired you in such a way. I think it's the best gift you could ever give anyone. So that's what I like to gift people, and that's what he gifted me. And so who knows? I mean, I
was listening to some of I think it was on one of your podcast episodes that I heard this on, where you just kind of referenced it. So good segue. Making an impact and being part of the ripple. Now, you talked a little bit about what that means. Can you explain a little bit more about what that means to you inside?
I can. And that's a great question, Mike. Thank you so much for asking me that. So it kind of really deep dives, and it circles me into sharing. When I was a teenager, I was sitting down in front of the TV. This is pre-Hollywood, pre-anything in my career, pre-popularity of adopting children, okay? Angelina Jolie, Madonna, Sandra Bullock, and so on, okay? I was a kid sitting in front of my TV, and an ad came on for Children's International, how I could help someone in the world. And I said yes. What you just said, the power of saying yes and not being afraid. I saw this on TV. My instincts told me yes. I picked up the phone right next to me. I picked up the phone. I called. They sent me an envelope with a photo of Renalyn Era. They sent me a photo of her, and we were pen pals. And I sponsored her for $12 a month through this program called Children International.
Yeah.
And because of me saying yes, a couple of things. I have been a ripple effect, and I will show you how. By the power of saying yes. I've gone on to sponsor 6 other children through the program, and to this day, I still sponsor her. And she's not a part of the program. She's graduated, but I've gone on to sponsor her 2 brothers, her mom and dad, her grandparents. And the only reason why I have Facebook is because of Renalyn. I'm able to see her and talk to her and see photos of her in the Philippines. And she calls me her second mom. She calls me Miss Katie. And she says, because of my grace and because of me supporting her whole entire life, I am anchored in with this young lady in the world that I've never ever met, and I have a aspiring desire. Before the pandemic, I've been trying to plan to go there, and I asked her. I said, "Hey," because I turned into being who I am and what I'm doing as a producer and filmmaker. I said, I asked her, is it okay with you when I come there if I shoot some video footage? And she's like, yes, Miss Katie, because what I want to do a short film called The Ripple Effect. And I want it to be called The Ripple Effect. And it show how the power of one human being saying yes without ever meeting someone, how we can have an effect, a ripple effect on their lives to support them, to put her brothers in school, and we're connected now through social media. So it's a great tool if you use it, wisely. And so how we can make an impact by the power of yes and be a part of the ripple effect. And by me having this beautiful relationship with Renalyn now for almost 2 decades. And I mean, it's just, yeah.
I don't know if you can tell, but that made me tear up.
I was wondering.
That made me tear up. Oh my God, I love that story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're almost at the end of our time here, but I want you to talk about why you're named your Greek baptismal name.
Kyriaki.
Yes. What about that name speaks to you? And I mean, it's named for a saint. So talk a little bit about why that name speaks to you.
It's a huge responsibility, Mike. I'm telling you right now, it's a huge responsibility. In the Greek tradition, we're named after gods, goddesses, saints. Saint Kyriaki was a martyr, and she was beheaded, and she was a lover of, Jesus Christ. And she was so into the Lord and to what she was into. She wasn't interested in boys and doing what everyone else was doing. She was into education. Her parents were philanthropists. They were very wealthy. And in the village next door, there was the son of the king who wanted to be with Kyriaki, and he thought because of who he was, he could be with her. And she said absolutely not. And he had her parents killed. And he thought by slander and by doing that, he would bully her into being with him, and she still said no. And then they had her beheaded. So like my yaya, who's my very, very best friend in the world, Kyriaki, it's who I'm named after. My dad's mother, she's 91. Thank God she's very healthy and strong. It's who I'm named after. She's a very prominent saint. It means Sunday in Greek. Simera Denine Kyriaki. I just said today is not Sunday because it's not. Unless you're listening on Sunday, then Simera Ine Kyriaki. But yeah, so Kyriaki means Sunday, and also she's a very prominent saint. There's an island named Kyriaki in Greece. There's special churches named Kyriaki in Greece. The boy version, the prime minister actually is Kyriakos. So he's the boy version of Kyriaki. So that's what Kyriaki means. And
and hold up your book of poetry, because that's the name on there. It's by Kyriaki. I said it right? Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's something that you use and embrace in just about everything you do.
I really do. I
And I
really
didn't mean
do.
to interrupt. I apologize for interrupting, but I
Oh
felt that
no.
was important to say.
Oh yeah, and this is
I love that photo.
that's
I love that.
thank you. So this is my yaya who I'm named after, and my friend Robert Sturman who did all the images. She was visiting me in California, and this is 50-year celebration of her coming from the old country, from the island of Chios, to be in America. So this is a monumental moment for Yaya. 50 years in America of coming over from the old country to provide a better opportunity for me, for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, Katie Chonacas, I absolutely love this interview. You made me laugh. You made me smile. You made me cry. I got all in one interview here, so I appreciate your time. Any parting words would you like to say?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for having me on. And, if you want to connect more, definitely, connect with me I'm on all social media platforms and check out my podcast. She's all over the place. If there's something specific you're going through, if it's fear, guilt, if you want to know more about entertainment industry as an actor, producer, model, DJ, music industry, anywhere in the world, I'm so grateful. I have friends all around the world, they call me Katie the connector. So I like to connect people. So, with ethics, morals, and values, because I know how it feels to, the reason why I started my podcast is when I was 12 years old, I wish I had like a little bird, like a little angel telling me certain things. So that's what I do in my podcast with my almost 2 decades my over 2 decades of experience in the entertainment industry. I like to provide that value and insight for people so they can maybe learn things that they don't know, or that I didn't know, that, to hack, to support. So I'm here to support you on your journey. And I appreciate you for being here for, Mike's journey and my journey collectively.
Great. Well, great. Katie Chonacas, Kyriaki. I think I said it right. I've been practicing that, and I failed until now. So
You're great.
Kyriaki. Thank you very much for being on my podcast, and I'll definitely have you back on again.
Would love to. Thank you.